If you live in Christchurch, there will almost certainly be a new hyphenated word in your vocabulary, onsolds. If you don't live in Christchurch, it's homes with earthquake problems that EQC had missed that were onsold with the buyer not knowing about them. How's that possible? Well, now people are getting rigorous building reports before they buy, of course, but in the aftermath of the earthquakes, before all the issues about scoping failures and dodgy repairs were known, people took EQC at their work, and when they said all repair work completed, people believed them. Buyers believed them. Banks believed them. Conveyancing lawyers believed them. So what happens now when damage that had been missed is discovered? Well, ask Georgina Hanafin, who bought her first home with an EQC clean bill of health to find it was a disaster zone. Yesterday, after years of emails and building and engineering reports, she went to meet EQC to find out where she stands. And with our cameraman, Nick Monroe, I went to Christchurch to see what happened. Georgie, what are you showing me here?
This is the auction pack that we received prior to purchasing our house at auction.
And on it are 4 vital words: all EQC repairs complete. It's a classic auction pack, Harcourt's letterhead at the top, a photo of the house, description of the property, but it's that one sentence that 4.5 years on echoes into meaninglessness.
All the EQC repair work had been completed. That was the selling point of the house.
In fact, that's in block letters. All EQC repairs completed, full stop.
Yep, and when we went to actually view the house, on the sign out the front of the house, they had that at the very top, and that was the byline of the property, was all EQC repairs completed.
And you believe that?
We had no reason not to. We had all of the documentation from the government that had signed off and said that it was all repaired.
And for people thinking a first home buyer should perhaps have done better due diligence, Georgina Hanafin wasn't alone in taking EQC at its word.
We emailed the auction pack to the bank, to the insurance company, and we gave it to our lawyers, and nobody saw any reason to believe otherwise.
And so Georgie Hanafin and her partner bought. And if you're wondering where we're at, we're in the EQC car park in Christchurch. And in a few minutes' time, another chapter in the sequel to that purchase will play out.
To put it simply, we have a house with a $300,000 mortgage on it. We've been told that we have $260,000 worth of damage, and EQC have just offered us $48,000 to fix it.
Let's leave the EQC car park for a moment and head across town to Linwood. The house itself is rather lovely, a bungalow with hints of that Californian vibe, a good-sized section, and the earthquake damage had been scoped and repaired, and the earthquake experts had signed off on that in writing. So they purchased. But what they didn't know was their house had been destabilised and aftershocks were still moving it, and the foundation repairs had been cosmetic rather than structural. You can see that in the cracks in the rim foundation around the exterior of the house. These have simply been filled in.
This is what they class as a skim repair, where they haven't actually done any repair other than take concrete, use a trowel to kind of rebox it and skim it, and as you can see, it's failing miserably. It's cracking. And
so that's the equivalent of putting on a thick layer of makeup, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
We moved around the house. So there was a crack in this?
Yep, so that is where the crack was, and there's another one on this side of the house as well.
And this is considered a complete repair job?
This is considered a complete repair job.
Filled in, it's utterly cosmetic, and where the cracks had gone all the way through the foundation, they only filled in the bits you could see, the exterior.
They've essentially put a sticky tape, like a sticking plaster, on one side and haven't followed it through to the other side.
And that means sections of the house have moved independently from each other in aftershocks, sometimes away from each other. So when you bought your house, this extraordinary corner was painted and bogged and just looked ordinary.
100%.
If you're listening, we're at a perpendicular join where the side of the house meets the front of the house and the weatherboard connects at 90 degrees. Now, the walls are pulling apart. That's classic earthquake damage, and the repair strategy appears to have been to bog and paint the gap. And as we kneeled there, pulling out the bog put in post-earthquake under those EQC-approved repairs, exposing the widening gap between the walls, I was incredulous anyone could have missed this. I really want to clarify, as we're standing here looking at the separation here between the side of the house and the front of the house, that when you bought the house, you are absolutely certain that these two weatherboards would have been joined and painted and there would have been no sign whatsoever of this kind of damage.
There was 100% no sign of any damage that would have made us concerned for the integrity of the repairs. If this kind of damage had been visible at the time of the open home, we would have turned around and walked out.
Now they're stuck with it. They've received an as-is offer of $190,000, which is more than $100,000 less than their mortgage. And even if EQC wants to put it right, and they say they do, EQC can't spend more than $100,000 without hitting cap, which pushes it on to the private insurers, Vero. But Vero aren't having a bar of it, and Georgina Hanafin has that in writing. So they've actually used the word substandard.
They have used the word substandard.
Repair work to date is substandard.
They also say that Vero considers any repairs are remedial due to not being carried out correctly during the first time substantive repairs and or failed repair.
So what they're saying is they won't cover the insurance work because it's not earthquake damage, it's shoddy repair work by EQC.
Yeah, it's shoddy repair work, and then they go on to their recommendation. They've said that as EQC originally elected to repair the dwelling and commenced work, the responsibility to remediate it remains with EQC. Vero will not accept ownership of the remediation, even if the costs exceed the statutory cap. So that makes it quite clear.
Which brings us back to the EQC car park, pre-meeting, and a question before we go in. Georgie, what has been the toll of the past 4.5 years, buying your first home, believing all EQC repairs were completed because that is what you were told, to finding yourself in this position, mortgaged, negative equity, seemingly trapped with a property that has been a disaster?
I was pregnant when we closed on the property, so I now have a 4-year-old son who has never met the laid-back, happy, life-loving person that he should have. My relationship has ended, so it's been a catalyst in the end of my 15-year relationship. We went into this, we had big dreams for the house. It was close to family, it was close to friends, it was a good section, close to the mall. We thought we were buying our future.
4.5 years on, with an earthquake-damaged house worth considerably less money than she still owes on it, a huge repair job required, and an insurer who won't touch it, Georgina Hanafin is here to ask EQC, what's next? We walk in. Highly unusually, I've been invited to join them, to observe. I can't record, and I won't name the EQC staff who were there. But I can say the meeting passes in a circle of hurt, helplessness, repetitions, relitigations, concessions, strings, caveats, multiple glasses of water, and a sense of being trapped. And I sit and listen to a riddle that seems to have no answer. What does Georgie Hanafin do next? It's tough in there for all parties, and when we come out, everyone is slightly stunned. What's the time?
The time is 4 o'clock.
So we were in there for 2 hours.
We were.
And how was that?
It was a waste of time.
The problem is there's no room to move. EQC hits cap and can't pay more, full stop. The insurer says no way, full stop. And there's no apparent solution that will fully remediate the inadequacies of the initial scope and repair. And so, after all this time, over 4 years, a meeting has been agreed to. So, you bought this property in September 2013?
Yeah.
We are now in May 2018, and an EQC appointed builder is going to meet a builder sent along by you to discuss what next. That's as far as you've got after all this time.
After 5 years, that's as far as we've got. We've finally got somebody to come to the property but it's actually not going to affect the outcome at all.
Georgina Hanafin,